Welcome back to Solic and Legal Encounters. All right, today we got a pro se defendant representing herself in a traffic case. She comes into court ready to present her own evidence, thinking it's going to help her case. But as you're about to see, that evidence may end up doing the exact opposite. And once you watch how this plays out, you'll understand exactly what I mean. Now let's get into
Deanna versus Aaliyah Smith, case number 49D332602 IF006555. The defendant is present along with the state's central witness, Trooper Cannon. Ms. Smith, if you can please turn on your video, and the parties are ready for trial.
Okay. All right, so Ms. Smith, good afternoon. I'm going to have you raise your right hand and get you sworn in real quick.
Can you say that one more time, Judge?
Yes, just please raise your right hand. I need to swear you in before we get started. And do you solemnly swear under the penalties of perjury the testimony that you're about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, Judge.
If you would, please state your name.
Aaliyah Smith.
All right, you can lower your hand. Thank you. So, Ms. Smith, we're here today for a bench trial. As you're aware, we are not doing this at the courthouse. We're doing it remotely via this WebEx application. Just want to make sure you understand that you have the right for the hearing to be done in person if you wanted to exercise that right. Do you understand that, ma'am?
I understand.
All right. Are you also indicating that today you are consenting to doing this bench trial remotely?
Yes.
All right. And are you doing that freely, knowingly, and voluntarily?
Yes.
Meaning nobody forced you or threatened you to get you to agree to do this remotely. Also, nobody promised you anything in exchange for agreeing to do it remotely. Is that all correct?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Let me check with the state to see if they're consenting to doing the trial remotely. Mr. Nikan?
State consents.
All right. So we'll show that both parties consent to the trial being conducted remotely. And just as a brief explanation of the way the trial works, ma'am, the state does have the burden of proof as it relates to the alleged violation, which on this case is work zone speeding, workers not present. Since they do have the burden of proof, they will go first when presenting evidence. If at any time you're objecting to the evidence that they're trying to admit, just tell the court you object, state your reason for that objection. I'll give them a chance to respond, and then I'll rule on any objections. You'll also have an opportunity to ask questions of any witness that the state might call. Just remember to make sure it's relevant to what we're here for today, which would be the alleged violation. After they're done presenting their evidence, you're going to have the same opportunity to present your own, but the rules that apply to them apply equally to you. And after both sides presented their evidence, each gets to argue whether or not the violation was proven and what, if anything, the court should order. Do you understand, ma'am?
Yes.
All right. And with that, I think we are ready to get started. But before we call any witnesses, any preliminary matters that we need to address from either party?
Not for the state.
Anything
As
from
far as you say, any preliminary matters?
Correct. Sometimes there are motions that parties might make before we get started. State indicates they don't have anything that we need to address. Just wanting to check with you to make sure there was nothing we needed to address from your end before we start the trial.
No, sir.
All right. And with that, you can call your first witness, Mr. Nikan.
Trooper Cannon.
All right. So, Trooper, if you'll unmute yourself, I'll get you sworn in. And do you solemnly swear under the penalties of perjury the testimony that you're about to provide this afternoon will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, sir.
Trooper, please state your name and spell your name for the record.
Christopher name Christopher CHRISTOPHER, last name Cannon CANNON.
And sir, where are you employed at?
Indiana State Police.
You are a law enforcement officer, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Taking you back to February 18th of 2026 at approximately 8:26 a.m. Were you on duty on that date and at that time?
Yes, I was.
Did you have an occasion to come into contact with the person you know to be Aaliyah Smith?
Yes,
You see Miss Smith with us this afternoon?
I do.
Could you identify an article of clothing she's wearing for the record?
Looks like a black t-shirt and a tan pullover sweater.
Your Honor, if the record reflect the witness identified the defendant.
The record will so reflect.
Thank you. Please describe to the court how it is that you came into contact with Miss Smith.
I was southbound. It was in Clear Path, construction zone on 465. Again, southbound on 465 in Clear Path, construction zone around the 38.6. I was in the second lane of 4. I saw her approaching in the far left lane. She passed me and traffic in the area along with a sign that had a 45-mile-an-hour works horns on top of the speed limit, stating it was a work site. Once she passed me, which caught my attention, I pulled in behind her, immediately activated my cruise control using my certified speedometer. Behind her at 69 miles an hour for approximately, I would say maybe a quarter mile and a half a mile. I was waiting for the shoulder to be present in that area. With the construction zone, it takes the shoulders away. So I was waiting for that area for us to safely initiate the traffic stop, which is around the 39.5 or so, just before 56th Street.
You described for the court that you were traveling through the Clear Path construction zone on Interstate 465. Is that correct?
Yes.
And what side, we're at in relation to downtown Indianapolis, is this?
It would be on the east side. Well, northeast.
Northeast from downtown, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you indicated that you were traveling southbound. Is that right?
Yes.
As it relates to the Clear Path construction zone, speaking broadly, let's talk about where the construction zone would begin.
So it would begin coming southbound. If you're coming from I-69, would be just north of 96th Street coming south. And then if you're coming east from 31, it would start around Allisonville Road coming eastbound, in relation to where we were when I came into contact with Miss Smith.
All right. And so the actual zone itself for the Clear Path construction zone does vary depending upon whether you're coming from Interstate 69 from the north, and that would begin at the 96th Street exit for southbound on Interstate 69. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you also indicated if you're coming from 31, what is 31 commonly known as?
I'm sorry.
What is 31 commonly known as?
The Meridian area.
Okay. And so if you were coming, you indicated from the east from 31 or Meridian on Interstate 465, it would begin around the Allisonville Road as you were traveling eastbound. Is that correct?
Correct. And it would have two sets of signs coming east from there. It would be from 65 to 55, which would have two sets of signs there. And then another two sets of signs there, what I would say from 55 to 45 coming eastbound from there.
And when you say that, are you referring specifically to the speed limit signs?
Correct. The work site signs that would come from the original 65 of the roadway down to the 55 and 45 of the construction zone.
Let's start specifically at the Interstate 69 southbound entering into the Clear Path construction zone. What, if any, signs are present as you are traveling southbound on Interstate 69 just north of 96th Street?
I believe there is a small white 45-mile-an-hour sign on the median there just before the 96th Street overpass, but the more obvious are just after the 96th Street overpass, where it would have a 45-mile-an-hour worksite speed limit sign.
And what does the sign state?
45-mile-an-hour worksite.
And you previously described a sign in your testimony in that it would indicate work site at the top of the 45-mile-per-hour sign. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is that the same type of sign that you just described for Interstate 69?
Yes.
And is the coloring, what's the color of the sign?
It would be white, but again, be orange. The sign for that.
And then also let's talk about then starting around the Allisonville Road for eastbound 465. What, if any, signs are present at that location to inform the traveling motoring public of that speed limit effect?
It would come from 65 miles an hour, which would be the regular speed limit. There's signs, two sets of signs. The first one that let you know it will be changing from 65 to 55 with a black arrow on top of it. And as you continue, it will change to 55, which will say work site 55. Then again, another two signs, the first set being the arrow letting you know it's changing again, and it will change to 45 from 55 coming eastbound from Meridian 31.
And I want to specifically talk about that 45 mile per hour sign. Where is that specific sign located at?
It would be just before the Allisonville Road exit there.
Describe what that sign looks like.
Be 45 miles per hour and then have work site on top in orange.
Okay. Specifically as it relates to the Clear Path project, whether vehicles are traveling southbound on Interstate 69 or traveling eastbound on Interstate 465 when they enter this construction zone, is this zone 45 mile per hour in effect 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, or only when workers are present?
24 hours, 7 days a week.
All right. And you indicated that in this specific instance, you were traveling southbound on 465 in the Clear Path construction zone. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Were you wearing an Indiana State Police uniform similar to the uniform that you're wearing in court today?
Yes, sir.
And were you in an Indiana State Police vehicle?
Yes, and fully marked with a light bar.
Okay. And what kind of police vehicle was it?
It is a Charger, 2020 Charger.
You also described for the court that there were 4 lanes. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you said that you were in the second lane of 4. Is that correct?
I was, yes.
When we say the second lane of 4, are we talking about the lane closest to the right lane as one's driving, or which lane are we talking about specifically?
Second lane from the right.
Okay. In which lane did you observe the defendant's vehicle when you initially observed her?
Would be the far left lane.
You also indicated that you observed her pass your vehicle and other vehicles. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you also indicated that there was a sign as well?
Correct.
Was that sign similar to the sign that you just described as it relates to the 45 mile per hour speed limit with the work site at the top of the sign?
Yes.
Okay. And what is it that initially drew your attention to the defendant's vehicle?
Her passing me and traffic in the area, knowing it's 45 miles per hour.
Okay. And do you recall what your speed was at that particular time?
I was at 52, I believe.
Okay. Is that when you indicated that you then got behind her vehicle to pace her vehicle? Is that correct?
Correct.
What is pace?
Pace would be me using my speedometer and my own vehicle to keep a safe distance, and where I'm not catching up and the defendant is not pulling away, I'm keeping a consistent distance where I am using my speedometer to see what my speed would be in comparison to her or him.
And you also indicated that you were able to pace the defendant's vehicle. Is that correct?
I was.
And at what speed were you able to pace the defendant's vehicle at?
My initial pacing was 69 miles an hour.
And did that change at any point in time?
It did not for the last portion. Like I said, when I started pacing her, I did not stop her until just after the 56th Street exit due to the shoulders being blocked off by barrier walls. So she continued for approximately 5 to 8 seconds, the same speed.
I'm sorry, how long did you say?
Approximately 5 to 8 seconds.
Okay. And when you indicated that you didn't stop her vehicle until just after the 56th Street exit, was that in the construction zone or out of the construction zone?
In the construction zone. It does not end until after the overpass of 56th Street, where you'll see an end of construction sign, which we were just in front of, maybe about a half a mile, quarter mile.
Okay. And did you make your approach on the defendant's vehicle?
I did the driver door.
Okay. And what, if any, interaction did you have with the defendant that time?
I asked her if she knew how fast she was going and what the speed limit was. She said she knew neither of those. I let her know what the speed I got her at and the construction zone speed. She said she was in a rush to work and she did not know her speed, as I mentioned before. And that was the gist of our conversation.
Okay. And so for that 5 to 8 second period of time that you paced your vehicle at 69 miles per hour, that was all within the construction zone. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then you initiated a traffic stop on the defendant's vehicle and you stopped her vehicle still inside the construction zone. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you indicated that from that distance, it would have been approximately a half more mile until the zone ended. Is that right?
Maybe more of a quarter of a mile.
Okay. And you also indicated that there was some delay and that you were waiting for the shoulder to open in order to initiate that traffic stop on her vehicle?
Yes.
And why is it that you would wait for a shoulder to open to initiate the stop?
So that whoever I'm stopping doesn't have the panic of completely stopping in the roadway or braking to the point of being confused where I could cause an accident or be rear-ended doing that.
You issued a citation. In this case, were workers present at this particular location?
They were not in that area.
Okay. And so did you issue a citation for work zone speeding, workers not present?
Yes.
At what speed?
I believe I put it down to 60 and a 45.
Okay. Did you use your discretion to issue a citation for a speed lower than what you determined your speed to be?
Yes.
Okay. You also testified that your speedometer on your commission is calibrated. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. All these events occur in Indianapolis, Marion County, Indiana.
Yes.
No further questions.
And thank you. Ms. Smith, were there any questions that you wish to ask Trooper Cannon?
Yes, I do. I didn't know if you were gonna go. Okay. I was pulled over outside of the construction zone.
Are you asking a question of the trooper? Sounds like you're testifying.
No, I'm sorry.
It sounds like you're testifying as opposed to asking a question. Right now is cross, so if there's any questions that you wanted to ask the trooper, this is your opportunity to do that. You don't have to, but this is your opportunity to ask the trooper questions.
No, I don't have any questions for the trooper specifically now.
Once again, we have a pro se defendant who brings it to trial and doesn't want to ask any questions.
Fine, thank you. And Mr. Niekamp, any additional witnesses?
State rest.
All right, so Ms. Smith, at this time, the state has rested. So I've already sworn you in, and whenever you're ready, you can commence with your presentation of evidence.
Okay. I was pulled over at 465 southbound. The location where I was pulled over, I mean, I have the pictures of where I was pulled over. It was at between the miles, in the mile marker 39.6. That construction zone, it ends between, the sign is up in between 39.2 and 39.3. The officer stated that he immediately pulled me over, which, if I don't want to say if that's the case, but I mean, I was not immediately pulled over. If there was a difference in the time frame from the construction zone versus where I was pulled over at. So I'm saying I was not in the construction zone. And that speed limit increases to 55 at 39.3.
I'm still listening. I don't want to presume when you're done, so you can continue until you're complete or you hear an objection if there is one.
Okay. Ultimately, because that location was, and I increased my speed after exiting the construction zone because the speed limit did increase. It's just overall, I mean, because the location did not line up to where I exactly was, I also question the accuracy of the recorded speed as well.
Anything else that you wanted to share before I see if the state has any questions for you?
That is all I have.
Okay, let me see if Mr. DeCamp has any questions. State?
No questions for the defendant.
All right, so any additional witnesses? Ms. Smith? I don't see anybody else, but anybody else?
No.
All right, so we'll show that at this time the defense rests. Any rebuttal, Mr. DeCamp?
A couple of questions for Trooper Cannon.
And so, Trooper, you're still under oath. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Trooper, did you hear the defendant's testimony this afternoon?
I did, yes.
Okay. Specifically, as it relates to the location, the defendant testified that she was pulled over at the 39.6. Is that consistent with what you observed on that date?
From my recollection, I was stopping her before the construction zone ended. I know this because the barrier walls are on both sides. That's why I waited for the time I did. When it comes to the memory of it being after the end of construction zone sign or before it, I would have to look back at my video. I was having trouble with it earlier. I'm kind of going off of memory, but what I remember is from my notes that it was, I stopped her before the end of the construction zone because of the barrier walls on both sides, which is why I waited. Could have been after the sign of end of construction zone or before it. That's something I cannot remember off the top of my head.
Your testimony this afternoon as it relates to pacing her vehicle while you're traveling southbound on 465, was that within the construction zone as you were traveling southbound?
Correct. Yes. I remember that clearly because those walls that can, like I said, takes the shoulders away is usually what I am paying attention to when they end to start my traffic stop.
Okay. And then also as it relates to, did you hear the defendant's portion of the testimony as it relates to a speed limit increase to 55 miles per hour at 39.3? Did you hear that portion of the defendant's testimony?
I did, yes.
Okay. And is that consistent with what you know to be what occurred back on February 18th of 2026?
Yes. And that sign is still there just after the 56th Street overpass.
You said just after the 56th Street overpass?
Yes. So as you're coming up the hill underneath the 56th Street Shaylin overpass.
And did you stop her vehicle before or after the 56th Street overpass?
I initiated my traffic stop in the zone before the overpass, and whatever the defendants do, I can't control. I follow them until we get off the roadway safely. So again, from my recollection, I did stop before. I initiated my stop before it. Where we ended up could have been just after where the 55-mile-an-hour zone sign was or before it. But again, I initiated my traffic stop before the end of the construction zone, and I followed the defendant until we were off the roadway, whichever direction they may choose or how long they choose to do so.
Okay, that's all I have.
All right, thank you. And ma'am, did you have any questions that you wish to ask the trooper based on those that were just asked by the state?
Sir, you did say that you pulled me over immediately, correct?
I initiated my traffic stop immediately, yes.
Okay. That is all that I have for the trooper. I don't know if it goes back to you, Judge, or I don't.
No, it would come back to me. So say that's your only rebuttal. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. So at this point,
yes, because
go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Typically, this would go to argument at this point after they called the rebuttal. Is there any omitted testimony that you're wanting or evidence you're wanting to submit to the court at this time?
I do have a few images of just the location of where I was specifically. is there a way I can email them over to anyone? I don't know if that's what's standard.
That should have happened before court started, but yes, that is a possibility, but the state would have a right to view those to see if they would have any objection. So you're indicating that these are photos that were taken on the I-465 area where the driving behavior and stop are alleged to have occurred. Is that correct?
Yes, this is after I stopped.
Right. And when were the photos taken?
After I was pulled over already, this is in between the time where the officer told me, okay, you're free to go, and before I pulled off.
Right, so is this just depicting that area on the same date, or was this depicting the area on a later date?
No, this is on that same date. This is on that far right shoulder, right where I was pulled over at, where I received the violation at.
All right, and so you're indicating that you actually took these photos on the same date at the time of the incident. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And what we'll do is we'll give you both Mr. Niecamp's email address, and then we'll give you the email address for the court, and then you can email those photos, and then we'll also allow for screen sharing, so that way you could potentially share your screen regarding those photos. So staff, if you could give her our email, and then once that's done, Mr. Niekamp, if you just want staff to forward it to you, we can do it that way, or if you want to give your email address, we can have her send those to your email as well.
Ma'am, I sent you a chat. That's our email address.
Can you say that one more time?
I sent you a chat. If you can look at it, it has our email address.
Okay, I see the email now.
Do we have any updates on if we receive the photos?
They're sent, so they should be received.
We haven't received anything, Judge. Give us a few minutes.
All right.
I did make her a presenter, so if she wants to share them as well.
All right. And Mr. Niekamp, are you okay with her showing the photos so you can decide if you object to their admittance before you receive the email containing those photos? Oh, sorry, you were Lucas.
She can show whatever it is that she.
And this is where things start to get interesting.
So, ma'am, we're going to go ahead and allow you to share your screen, and then you can show the photos that you're moving to admit into evidence.
Okay, so here's what happened originally when she tried to submit those pictures. The judge said they couldn't be admitted because the time for introducing the evidence had already passed, so at that point, she wasn't allowed to use them. But then later, the same photos ended up being referenced to support the argument that she was driving in a 45-mile-per-hour zone. That's where it gets a little confusing that I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments, because you can clearly see what happened right there.
Just so you know, you are muted, just FYI.
Thank you. I'm trying to pull the pictures up from what I just sent. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can. All right, so
the picture is zoomed in. It's raining this day. I'm all the way on the right shoulder, so I can't really see any potential speed limits that were there listed. And that just goes to show just a more accurate location of where I was.
all right, so the photos are photos from where the actual spot where you stopped when you were pulled over. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right, and both of these photos were taken on the date of the stop, correct?
Yes.
All right, so any objection, Mr. Niekamp, as to, we'll call this, you didn't admit anything yet, so we'll just call them Defendant's Exhibit 1 and 2, which she purports to be the location of where she actually pulled over subsequent to the traffic stop.
Your Honor, the state would object. First of all, it's not relevant because obviously the trooper initiated the traffic stop after pacing the defendant's vehicle for that 5 to 8 second period of time during while she was in the construction zone. So as it relates to where it is that she was stopped, again, it's not relevant for purposes of the trial today. Secondarily, the defendant failed to discover these photographs prior to trial this afternoon. Obviously, we're in the midst of trial. In fact, the defendant already rested her case in chief at the time that she's now attempting to introduce these photos that, again, are not relevant to the trial this afternoon. And so based upon the lack of relevancy, the fact that these were not discovered prior to the trial today, the state would move that the court not admit this photograph into evidence.
It's actually two, right? This is the bottom one, which is kind of the out of the the driver's side window. And then you have one above it, which is out of the front of the vehicle. Is that correct, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay. So here's what the court will do. It certainly understands the state's objection and both bases for objection. Court will go ahead and admit those, but it'll assign them the appropriate weight. Anything else, ma'am, before we go forward with argument?
I'd also like to, again, emphasize that the officer is saying that I was pulled over immediately when there is a
I'm going
distinctive...
to object in terms of her characterizing what the trooper's testimony was. This is a time for her to introduce evidence. She's introduced her
That's
photographs. The court's admitted those photographs, but it is not the time for her to characterize the trooper's testimony. And so anything that she states, unless it's evidence from what occurred back on February 18th of 2026 at 8:26 in the morning, should not be permitted because, again, she's not permitted to characterize what the trooper's testimony was during her evidence in chief, which, again, she already rested her case several minutes ago.
I did not rest my case, and I was ruled in.
He's able to articulate his objection. I'll give you a chance to respond. You don't interrupt him. When he's done, I'll give you a chance. Okay, you can continue, Mr. Niekamp. I'm listening.
And as I was indicating, she had previously rested her case, and the state presented rebuttal evidence, so she is not permitted to then also introduce additional evidence beyond what it is that she introduced.
Sure. So, ma'am, what Mr. Niekamp is indicating is that effectively what you're doing now is engaging in argument, which is something you'll be able to do when we get to argument. But the purpose of this is just for the evidence for the court to consider. And so that's what his objection is. Did you have any response, or did you just want to wait until argument when you are free to characterize the evidence and why you believe that should lead the court to the conclusion that they haven't met the burden of proof?
Okay, I understand that the evidence will have to be discussed at a later date.
Not date, just when it's time for argument. So we're in the evidentiary portion right now. Both sides have presented their evidence. And so if everybody's done presenting evidence, then we move on to argument. States can argue why they believe they've met their burden of proof based on the evidence presented. And then when they're done, you're going to have the chance to argue why you believe they have not met the burden of proof based on the evidence that was presented to the court today. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. So it sounds like everybody's ready for argument, correct?
Yes.
All right. And ma'am, you're ready for argument at this time as well, correct? All right. Go ahead, Mr. Niekamp.
Your Honor, the state of Indiana has proven the violation by a preponderance of the evidence. This is a civil case. The burden of proof in a civil case is proof by preponderance of the evidence, meaning is it more likely than not that the violation occurred. In this case, Trooper Cannon testified that he was traveling southbound on Interstate 465 in the Clear Path construction zone, which had signage present both at Interstate 69 southbound at 96th Street, as well as signage present at Allisonville Road to inform the traveling motoring public of that 45-mile-per-hour construction zone being in effect. And again, he testified that that construction zone was in effect 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, regardless of whether or not workers were present. As he continued in the construction zone southbound on 465, he testified that he observed the defendant's vehicle to be traveling the left lane. The trooper testified that he was traveling at a speed of 52 miles per hour, he believes, in that 45-mile-per-hour construction zone, the defendant's vehicle passed his vehicle. He then got behind the defendant's vehicle and began a pace of the defendant's vehicle using his calibrated speedometer in his police commission. And again, he testified that in order to conduct that pace, he kept a safe distance where he's not catching up to and the defendant is not pulling away, and maintaining that consistent distance to compare his speed to the defendant's speed. And he paced the defendant's speed of her vehicle at 69 miles per hour for approximately 5 to 8 seconds within the construction zone. He then stopped the defendant's vehicle. He testified, still within the construction zone, after conducting that pace for that 5 to 8 second period, initiated the traffic stop, had a conversation with the defendant. The defendant was unaware of what that posted speed limit was, and she was also unaware of what her speed was at the time that she was traveling through the construction zone. And then finally, she also told the trooper that she was running late. The defendant's testimony this afternoon is she never testified to what speed it is that she was traveling. The only evidence in terms of what speed that she was traveling within the construction zone was from the trooper, and he used his discretion to issue a citation for lesser at 60 and a 45 versus the 69 miles per hour and a 45 mile per hour zone that he testified that she was traveling. This is all to say that as it relates to the photographs that she introduced, the photographs, taking a look at the photographs, there's no signage that's present, that's visible. And so these photographs that she admitted into evidence this afternoon show from her front mirror and then also shows from her side mirror. You do see signs in that second photograph that are in her rearview mirror that are construction orange related signs, but otherwise you can't ascertain what it is that she's attempting to show by way of these photographs. And specifically in this instance, she again did not contest what her speed was by raising what her speed was when this occurred, more so to the fact she focused on the fact that she was pulled over and potentially, based upon her testimony, pulled over outside of the construction zone. The trooper testified that he paced her vehicle for that period of 5 to 8 seconds within the construction zone, and it's irrelevant as to what the speed limit increases to. After the fact, the trooper testified that he initiated that stop of the defendant's vehicle prior to the 56th Street overpass, and that 55 mile per hour increase would have occurred after that overpass occurred. All this is to say the state's proven the violation by a preponderance of the evidence. The state would request the court enter judgment for the state and against the defendant and assess the minimum fine and cost for work zone speeding workers not present of $439.50 to be paid to the Marion County Clerk by December 23rd of 2026. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Niekamp. And then going over to you, Ms. Smith, argument on your own behalf, ma'am.
Yes, I like to say that to argue against that, it is not, I'm aware that it is not standard for anyone to be pulled over a third mile after I'm alleged clocked. I understand that the images, we can't use them as evidence, but even after that 1/3 mile, I was not pulled over in that construction zone and I was not clocked in that construction zone. So even the ticket it's falsified.
Is she saying he's lying?
Any additional argument?
I understand that the speed limit increased to 55 miles per hour at the mile marker 39.3. Again, that's for me exiting the construction zone. I also like to argue that in reference to rushing or speeding to work, that is not the case. Always working.
Objection as it relates to evidence outside the scope that's occurring during argument. Argument portion's concluded, and so a person may not attempt to introduce new evidence after the evidence portion of the trial's been concluded.
So again, his objection is you're certainly free to make argument on the evidence that's already come out, whether it's evidence the state presented or evidence that you presented, but you can't basically try to admit new evidence in the course of argument. And so that's what his objection would be. So court's going to sustain that objection. You're free to argue. Just make sure that you're not adding facts that weren't a part of evidence.
Okay.
You can continue.
That is all.
So here's where we're at, and I think I understand the positions of the parties, which is state is alleging that the driving behavior itself, where the trooper is alleging that you were going 69 miles per hour in a 45 mile per hour zone, did in fact happen in the zone where it was 45 miles per hour and posted as such. And then you're indicating that you believe that you were both traveling at that speed when you were paced by the trooper and stopped outside of the 45 mile per hour zone in the 55 mile per hour zone, I believe is my understanding. I would agree with the state that right now the only speed that the court has to consider would be the speed that was noted by Trooper Cannon, which he indicated was a pace at a 69, that he then wrote down to you yourself didn't provide any specific speed other than to say when you entered the 55 mile per hour zone, you believe that you did increase your speed since the speed had gone up from 45 to 55. So really what the court is looking at is what do I believe is the location of the driving behavior relative to the posted speed limit, where again, defendant believes that it was a 55 mile per hour zone and state is indicating based on the trooper's testimony that the driving behavior occurred in the 45 mile per hour zone. And again, where you ultimately stopped your car after the trooper's lights were activated isn't relevant to the court's decision. It's just as the court believed that the actual driving behavior, which led to you being pulled over, whether it was in or outside of that 45 mile per hour zone, happened within the 45 mile per hour zone. So what I'm going to do today is I'm just going to take the issue under advisement. Parties are free to submit proposed orders, should have a decision out here in the coming days. And ma'am, what that means is since I'm not issuing my order today, you'll get notice of the court's decision, whether that comes in the mail. But again, I should have a decision sometime in the next, whether it's by the end of the week or early next week, as far as what the court ultimately decided. Do you understand, ma'am?
I understand, Judge.
All right. And anything else on behalf of the state, Mr. Niekamp?
Just referencing Defendant's Exhibit 1, if the court looks at the speedometer, it does say limit 45 on a speed limit sign. So if the court can just give that its proper weight in considering whether or not the defendant was still in the construction zone based upon what appears to be GPS indicating by way of her speedometer what the speed limit was at the time of the stop.
I apologize. I didn't see that specific portion. Let me pull up the exhibit. So you're describing the first photo where it looks like there's a turn signal showing that it's activated to the right. And then in just below that, between the RPMs and the speedometer is where you're indicating it shows 45 mile per hour in that section.
Yeah, it's like a white speed limit and it says 45 on her dashboard.
All right. I mean, that's part of the evidence. Court certainly does see what you're describing as far as the 45 mile per hour showing in what would appear to be a speed limit sign. So court does see that.
Okay, originally when she submitted those pictures, he said they couldn't be used as evidence because that time had already been passed. And so she wasn't able to submit them. But then now he uses the same pictures against her to prove that she was in a 45 mile per hour zone. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments, but you see it right there.
All right. Anything else from either party?
None from the state.
All right. And ma'am, anything else on your own behalf?
None at the moment, Judge.
All right. And with that, you're free to go, Ms. Smith. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you, Trooper Cannon, for being here as well. And thank you, Mr. Niekamp.
It's unfortunate because she brought evidence into court thinking it would support her defense, but it ended up working against her. Now, even though her vehicle showed 45 miles per hour, there's still a possibility she could have been in a 55 mile per hour zone, and the speed limit change hadn't updated yet. But at the end of the day, that argument probably wasn't going to save her if the officer clocked her inside the construction zone, and she continued driving for 2 more miles before being stopped. It doesn't really change the fact that the speed was recorded where it was recorded. That's the key issue. But either way, let me know what you think about this case down in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next one.